You are tuning in to Fabulous and Fortunate, a Monáe's Musings production.
Greetings and welcome back to another episode of Fabulous and Fortunate. I am your host, Amayah Monáe, and today I kind of want to, I wouldn't say piggyback, but on the last episode, it was about forgetting to let yourself be human and being your body and actually being your body and living your body. So today I really want to talk about the power of our throat and talking and telling our truth and why it's deeply healing and why it actually is one of the most powerful and potent medicines on earth, if you believe it or not. So this episode really is just like a raw episode. And I feel like all of the episodes are very intimate. And even thinking to how I have a podcast, right? Like, if you know me in real life, you know that I am a very private person. And the fact that I even have a podcast is like, oh my goodness, like, because, I share, but, I feel like I found the delicate balance between sharing and making sure I don't overshare, because I do, get pretty vulnerable on here sometimes. And the thing with talking in our throat chakra and relating it to this episode, it's so important and vital to understand that when we're using our vocal cords and we're using our breath and we're speaking, we are giving life to something. So even thinking to how I have a podcast, even though I'm a very, very private person, it was always a thing of like, you know what, this thing that I'm sharing is worth, putting this out there, even though, I know that I am just so to myself. Even when people find out that I have a podcast, which they only find out if it happens to come up, because I don't just, I'm not one of those persons who's like, oh, just bringing up this podcast, and there's nothing wrong with doing that. But, I don't do it for that, if that makes sense. So there's a point to this, I promise. Okay, so bringing it back to having a podcast, even though I'm a private person, and the power of our throat chakra and the power of truth and the power of speaking. It's very beautiful. And not only does it give space for other people to feel comfortable in living in their truth, but it allows you to be like, I can really do this thing. If I am able to speak my truth and I'm able to show up and I'm able to do this thing, it's like, okay, that's that permission to just stop performing and to just be free and to honor the intelligence of my body and my voice. So let's talk it out. Welcome to this episode. Thank you for being here. It's so vital to be able to talk to those around us about when we're hurt, when we're triggered by something, or when we're unsure. Sometimes we can make assumptions, we can write narratives in our minds, And sometimes those unspoken stories can lead to irreversible decisions. Some emotions that we often avoid talking about, including anger, resentment, disappointment, or I wanted more, are actually those things that sometimes the other person needs to hear. Because, it's one thing to decide, hey, this person has just done something that I do not want to ever deal with them again. And there's just no way that we can be in any close proximity to each other. And that's just that on that. And, sometimes you will have those situations. And I think everyone knows what their limits are. And everyone knows, what they can and can't accept. Everyone has their lines that can't be crossed. I know what my lines are. And, everyone has those lines. But there are certain things that I think that if we were able to just have a conversation, like a true, genuine, real conversation, and just tell the person exactly how you were feeling, I think that would salvage so many things that we think are just so unsalvageable. Something as powerful to just say, I am super, super mad at you. Like, I am really, really, really mad at you. But I want to work through it with you. It takes a lot of not only courage, but confidence in your ability to repair something with someone, to even be able to say that, to even be able to say, hey, like, this is so uncomfortable to even have this conversation, but what we have matters to me. It matters to me more than my ego. It matters to me more than me having to pretend that, oh, I just want to look all put together, and you know what? I'm not even going to show emotion. I'm just going to act like none of this is bothering me and just going to let this good thing go just because I don't want to get out of my ego for a minute. And it's like, why? Like, what is the point of doing that? It only hurts ourselves when we hold things inside and hold it against the other person instead of just being like, man, like, you hurt me. But you know what? This is my truth. And after speaking my truth, if there's a way that we can repair this, and if I still want this, then I'm willing to. And like I said, everyone has their limits and their lines that you can't cross. But if you're continuing to have the person in your life, you owe not only yourself, but them the fullest expression of your truth and your clarity. And I realized that when our throat chakra is blocked, it hurts. Silence hurts. The throat chakra is the energy center of our clarity, our truth, and our authentic expression of ourself. When this is blocked and when we're allowing ourselves to continue to perform for those around us, and we're allowing ourselves to continue to play games, maybe even some games that we're a part of that we didn't completely consent to. But if you're playing the game, you're still a player in the game until you realize, okay, like, if your throat chakra is blocked or overactive, it really can manifest as even something as like a sore throat, or you start just getting sick and then you start catching everything around you. And it's like, why am I all of a sudden starting to just not feel well? And it's like, that energy has to express itself somewhere. If you're not expressing it, if you're not choosing to express it in a healthy way, it has to express itself, because energy is one of those only constants that I know is a constant. energy is literally everywhere. And I also think that's the reason why I really did want to talk about this, because I feel like, there are so many podcasts. Well, not so many, but I don't know. I wouldn't know. But I feel like there are quite a bit of podcasts that are focused on health and wellness, and this is what you should do for this, and you need to do this, and this is why this. And I feel like sometimes it's as simple as being able to have a safe space to express certain emotions and a safe space to process them. And why is it even important for us to have our truth be heard? Because, and this is truly what I believe, holding in a truth is a slow act of self-abandonment. Your body remembers what your voice didn't say. So if you're telling your body, even though we know that this is our truth, and we know this is what we want to say, and, we're in our head about this thing, but we're choosing to not tell this person, or we're choosing to not deal with it, or we're choosing to turn away, that must express itself. It's literally telling yourself, it doesn't matter what I see. It doesn't matter what my third eye can clearly see. And anytime you tell your body that, that's like telling your body that it's not worthy of love, because truth is love. In my worldview, truth is love. And I feel like the truth doesn't disappear. It just finds another way out. And that's a whole nother conversation. But back to this in our friendships, in our relationships. It's sometimes as simple as saying, I had this feeling, and it could be nothing, but I do want to bring it up if it is something, just to assuage my peace of mind. So I'm not running circles thinking, well, did they mean this? Did they mean this? Like, do they still care about me? Do they still love me? Do they still want me in their life? And I feel like when you start thinking like that about someone, it's like you just need to talk to them. You need to be like, hey, like, we're either going to repair or we're not. But it's like you shouldn't continue to let things just drag on and fester, and that you need to have certain conversations with people, because that's not fair to them and it's not fair to you. And I never want to be like preachy, because it's not something that is preachy. It's just like something that we need to talk about sometimes, because it's like, why do we hold this in? And I get that it can be so uncomfortable sometimes having these conversations that you really just don't want to have, because sometimes you just don't know what the other person's going to say. And sometimes you're putting your whole truth out there. You're being vulnerable and you're putting your truth out there, and you're saying what it is you need to say. And then after that, you can't determine how they're going to respond. That's not up to us. And I think sometimes we do want to control how others perceive us. But your truth is just your truth. It's not up to you to determine how someone else is going to perceive what is true for you. And it's like, how can you reopen that? How can you begin to rebuild those bridges of trust with people if you don't even feel safe, to express when you're uncomfortable? And what I love about anytime I get an inkling of what I want to talk about, I'll experience it in my life. So, for instance, I'm going to give a real life example of something. And this literally happened recently. For some reason, I misread a situation and I got in my head about something. And something told me I was just being in my head and misreading it. I'm like, it's summer, we're all busy. And, I knew that I was doing things. And, anyways, it ties into the story, I promise. So I noticed that anytime I would pass by a person that I used to always speak to, they weren't speaking. And, I was doing my, little wave and hi and bye that I always did, but they weren't doing it on their end. And, we have had enough conversations to this point for me to be like, oh my gosh, like, oh, what did I do? Like, why are they even back? And, even as I recall it now, my voice just got, a little squeakier because it was a moment of like, oh my God, what did I do? Like, why did they just stop waving at me? Like, what? Like, I'm cool with all of you. Like, what happened? So I got in my head, and for weeks, I was just thinking, like, what did I do? Every time I would see them, I'm just like, what did I do? So finally, I was like, you know what? I am not going to continue to wonder what is going on. I'm going to actually bring it up. And before I did it, a few days before, I was like, okay, I was chalking myself up because, I also did not want to look ridiculous if it was nothing. But I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna, and I didn't make it a big deal. I didn't overthink it. I was like, I'm not gonna think about this for more than 1 minute. And I didn't. I was just like, I had my plan in place and I was just gonna bring it up to them. And I wasn't gonna think about it until we had that moment. So the next time I saw them, I was just like, hey, can we just talk for, do you have a second? I was like, you have a second? And they were like, yeah. And I was like, I brought up how I was feeling. I'm not going to go into details what I said because, it was simple. But basically, I brought up how I was feeling. And I was like, I just noticed, you weren't, doing our normal whatever. And then they were like, oh my God, I've just been so busy. And literally after they explained it to me, I knew I really was just in my head about it. Because even when I brought it up, I was like, I just knew that they weren't the type of person to just, have something going on and show me in a subliminal way like that. Even when I brought it up to them, I knew that that's not the kind of person they were. That's why I was so shook. And they were like, no, it really is nothing. It really, if anything, I was just in my head and going to the next thing. And like I said, I get it because I know some seasons in your life, you do need more time to yourself and you do need more time to just chill. So, and then they were like, I really appreciate you coming to me though and bringing it up. And then we had a moment because of that. And I almost started to cry because as a woman, to another woman to be able to say ugh, this is so uncomfortable for me, but I'm going to bring it up anyway because what we have matters to me. And I want this to work. Even if we're not friends. It's I want this to work and I want us to be good. And I want to create that safe space, that non-judgmental space to be able to, if need be, say, hey, this is how I'm feeling. And it can be silly, but I trust this enough to feel safe to bring this up. And I'm so glad I did. And I just know I walked away just feeling like so seen, and I felt so much better. And it immediately was like just nothing. It was nothing anyways, but it was a moment, and it mattered. And the more you do that, the more you're telling yourself what I have to say and what I feel matters. And if I don't understand something, I am able to ask. And if I need the help to understand a situation, I am able to ask for clarity and clarification. That does not make me weak. It makes me confident. It makes me courageous to do that. And sometimes we even will withhold, saying things in a loving, honest, clear way, because sometimes we don't want to look weak. Because it's really valuable in me. And I'm learning this with my friendships and relationships that I have, and any other close relationship I have. I'm learning that it's really, really important and valuable for me to be able to name what's going on directly instead of harboring resentment. Because honestly, it always leaks out anyways. If you're feeling resentment towards someone, it's always going to reach some peak that's going to make it have to leak out. And honestly, sometimes assumptions lead to irreversible decisions. And sometimes it's okay to say, hey, I am super duper duper upset and mad. And I'm allowed to feel that way. But I want this. I want this, whatever. I want this to work. And being able to do that, oh my gosh, it's powerful. And it also boosts your self-esteem because you're like, oh my gosh, like I was just able to have a really uncomfortable conversation. The world's still spinning. We're still fine. And actually, I respect them and myself better because of it. And I think when you do that, you just show yourself that you can be trusted. And when you show yourself that you can trust yourself, it really does lend to your healing in like such a beautiful way. And if you do struggle to say what you mean, and if you do struggle to sometimes bring up uncomfortable conversations, some things you can do to help include journaling your rage. This is my favorite. I'll literally just scribble stuff down. And I don't do it in one of my pretty notebooks because I don't want to look at it later. I'll just scribble down exactly what I'm feeling, and I'll get as bad and as nasty as I need to get. Because guess what? No one's ever going to see it. And I'm like, if there's anywhere you need to get out how you feel, get it out on a pieces of paper where no one's ever going to see it. And I would just make sure to put it in the trash or burn it. Because guess what? That rage needs to go somewhere. You need to get that rage out. And part of opening your throat chakra, you will feel all of that start to come up. All of that suppressed anger, all of that suppressed rage, all of that suppressed resentment, all of that suppressed shame. It literally starts coming out and up as you speak out and as you tell people more and more of how you really feel. So you do need a safe outlet for some of that because, or else, I mean, So also, singing without judgment can help you reopen your throat chakra. Sometimes we don't want to sing because, we worry about how we might sound, or we worry about, oh, I'm not as good as whoever. Who cares? Singing is something that is not owned by anyone. People don't own certain things, even if they think they do. No one owns it. So I feel like when you're able to do certain things like singing and dancing and painting and crocheting or whatever your art form is, without feeling like, you're comparing it against someone else's version of it, it really does help you to express yourself, because you're allowing yourself that outlet without worrying about how it's going to look. You're allowing yourself to get it out. You're allowing yourself to just express in the material, physical form, which lends itself to being able to show up in your everyday life. I would also practice saying things in a mirror. Sometimes mirror work can be a bit interesting as you first start out, but the more you do it and the more you truly love what you see looking back at you, it really does reflect in your ability to hold space for sometimes uncomfortable conversations. And, sometimes clarity doesn't require confrontation. Sometimes it's simply sending a message or note saying, I don't have all the words yet, but I care enough to start and I care enough to try. And really, it comes down to determining what really matters. So much of what goes on in our life just really doesn't matter. And we get in our head about things. And sometimes we see things for as they are, but we'll gaslight our own intuition and we won't even do anything about it. So it's not doing too much. And it's not, oh, I don't want to rock the boat. It's called determining I have a body and a voice. And sometimes I just need to use it and just let that be that. And the more that I feel like we're able to speak our truth, we're able to have truly sacred relationships. Like, imagine being able to just tell someone really just how you're feeling and just knowing that they're just gonna get you. I think that those type of friendships and relationships and close encounters are just so sacred, because I feel like it's so needed and it's so necessary to be able to do that. So I encourage you to talk it out with someone. Talk it out. Really hear them. Hear what they have to say, even if it's ridiculous. Give them the space to say, hey, this is how I'm feeling. And, I can't control how you'll respond to it, but I care about you. And this is something I want to work. So, yeah. And sometimes part of that is just being able to apologize. And, some people really are not able to apologize. And I realized that I was like, not everyone is able to apologize. Like, some people really aren't able to hold themselves accountable or even, empathize with another person to give them an apology or give them the space to be seen in a way that lets them know that, you're taking to heart how your actions affected them. And that's something you have to watch out for, because it's definitely a trait. And And that is definitely a sign of other things as well, because if you're not able to apologize, how are you able to, grow as a person? And yeah, it's like be unapologetic, but come on, we should all be able to hold ourselves accountable. And I deeply, deeply, deeply admire that in other people. And it's like, yes, life is just not guaranteed enough for us to hold stuff in anymore. We need to express that. We need to express ourselves, express what it is we need to say. And there's a way to do everything, right? Like you don't have to be mean and nasty when expressing things. You're able to say things in a way that allows you to stand in your truth, but also gives respect to the person. And it really creates for intentional friendships and relationships, because the ones that survive the hardness and the uncomfortableness, those are the ones that are like steel. And anytime I ask, like older friends or people who've been friends or like who you can tell they really have a good relationship, it's like, that they're not putting on a front. Like, those people you see, they're not putting on a front. Like, they really love this person. I realize that they're able to like have those really, really, really hard conversations. And I realized that my strongest bonds are with the people that I have truly just put it all out on the table. How what they did hurt me, if they hurt me, if something was bothering me, I was able to tell them about it immediately. So I really appreciate you tuning into this episode today about our throat chakra. Coming out of Virgo season, we're entering autumn and the rest of this quarter. And it's like, I just feel like this is the potential for our relationships to truly just be like solid. It's giving solid. It's giving everything it needs to give. But I think that solidness comes from honesty. It comes from clarity. And it also comes from letting go of our ego. Letting go of that ego and being able to just look someone in the eye and just say, hey, like, I'm just going to be a human right now and say how I'm feeling, even if it's uncomfortable and even if there's a chance that you may not get me. I'm going to say it anyway because I need to. And that is powerful. And that really can't be duplicated because that takes guts too. I will see you next time, and I appreciate you being here. And yes, if you feel inclined to, please leave me a rating wherever you're listening to this. And I will see you next time. And I said that already. Okay. Mwah.
This has been Amayah Monáe with Monáe's Musings. And until we speak again, may your head and your heart speak with one voice. Peace.